Yeah, so sticky inflation is metric of things that are basically entered into in long-term contracts, right? So rent, for example, I sign a 1-year lease that effectively locks in that dynamic. Flexible inflation is where I go to the gas station and prices change every single day.
Yeah.
Right. If I look at the dynamics that describe persistent inflation, at least historically, and this is particularly true when you start talking about things like labor dynamics, those have historically been tied to sticky inflation components. They haven't really been tied to the flexible components. And actually, again, let me show you this just very quickly. Let's pull up flexible CPI, right? So this is actually a really good illustration of what we just lived through and experienced, in which, if you remember, everybody was screaming in one form or another, the government is lying, they don't open their eyes, they're not actually paying attention to inflation, et cetera, right? Remember all that dialogue that everybody is focused on? Okay, so here's actually the flexible CPI numbers, right? This is stuff like going to the gas station, et cetera. I'm not sure if you can totally, you can totally see the screen now.
Yeah.
This is the 3-month average flexible CPI number annualized, right? So it's taking a 3-month average, annualizing it. And what it's telling you is that the flexible components, the rapidly price changing things, going to the grocery store, going to the gas station, we experienced 25.2% inflation at the end of 2021. That pretty closely matches what everybody saw. And by the way, very similar to levels that we saw in 1974, which it only hit 23%.
Yeah.
Right? If I do it on a 1-month basis, right? So I actually allow myself to capture things like the Russian influence. Look at this, right? We were at like 35% inflation levels in early 2022 and in the summer of 2022 tied to the Russian invasion, right? Now we're running 38 basis points, right? If I look at the sticky components of it, and I look at the 3-month component to it, I look at the 3-month moving average, right? So that number right now is 3.9%. Look at the difference of the 1970s versus this, and I hate to use the word, transitory experience, right? Could it be 1967 and 1968? Man, I don't know. Possible. I will point out, I'll show you a few other charts that actually push back against that, but man, look at that. We're down to 3.9 from 7 and change. Let's go a step further and let's recognize that this is using the CPI methodology, so it's actually using the owner's equivalent rent. Let's pull that out. Let's look at the 3-month excluding shelter. 1.4. Let's look at the 1 month, which again, remember, these are sticky, and so there's persistence to this type of behavior. Oh, 0.11%. Right? It's actually below the level of most of history. Now, could we see that rebound? Of course. Right? Could we see these dynamics change? But you know what is actually happening? Rents are moving into oversupply. That's the largest portion of the CPI metric. Right? And the leading indicators, things like repeat rent indices. So Cleveland Fed tracks repeat rent indices. This is new tenants changing their lease. In the first quarter, that had already fallen negative. The data is only available on a quarterly basis. It was already negative by the first quarter. This moves faster than things like the Zillow Observed Rent Index, which is capturing everybody.